Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of The Expansion Point. I'm your host, Brad Johnson. I want to welcome you to a really interesting episode that we're going to have today, as we're going to be talking about Starseeds and Indigos. And we're also going to be talking about something that represents what's known as the fourth wave. And we'll be getting into that here very, very shortly. So again, welcome everybody who is watching this live on the Akashic Academy, or if you're watching this through recording, welcome as well too. So let's go ahead and get started. So, Starseeds and Indigos. The wave of new volunteers that came upon the Earth intensified after the post-atomic era, beginning with the baby boomers. The late Dolores Cannon referred to these beings that incarnated on the Earth as the three waves of volunteers, if those of you who are familiar with Dolores Cannon's work. In popular spiritual circles, we would know these volunteers to be referred to as starseeds, way showers, indigo children, and crystal children, just to name a few. The volunteers upon this planet have specific life missions designed to uplift the overall populace and end corruption. And so I could basically say that many people who are watching this right now would fit the bill as it relates to the three waves of volunteers: the Starseeds, the Indigos, the Crystal Children, the Way Showers, etc. We have many different titles for these particular types of beings. So again, this is something that many of us that are understanding metaphysics, many of us who are understanding the awakening process, that we will stumble upon. We'll look into the idea of people who have referred to themselves as Starseeds, as Indigos, as Rainbow Children, as Crystal Children, etc. What do these terms mean? What is it that we're attempting to convey here when we're looking into these terms? Well, let's look a little bit further. The starseeds and indigos, or volunteers, will have specific tendencies that set them apart to other humans who have incarnated upon this planet for many generations. You will find that the indigo starseeds volunteers will have very compassionate hearts. So they are very open. They're here to serve. They want to assist others that are going through painful situations, situations of great conflict, and they want to use their own compassionate hearts to assist in healing. They have a deep commitment to assist and uplift others. They have an extraordinary extrasensory perception ability or abilities, such as clairvoyance, telepathy, empathy, or empathic nature, telekinesis, and levitation in rare cases. I have actually talked to some people through sessions and otherwise who have also had telekinetic experiences where they were able to basically throw objects off tables, off shelves. One person was actually able to shatter the glass of a shower window. So they have had some pretty powerful experiences there. There have also been young children who have been able to levitate in rare cases as well too. They'll actually just start to, they may not even think about it. They'll just go through these spontaneous states of levitation. There are also children, you could say, at young ages that will often be visited by extraterrestrials. They will actually have them appear in their bedroom. And again, I've had lots of cases with this. This is actually quite common, where they're sleeping. They're maybe about 3 or 4 years old, and they're sleeping peacefully in their bed, and all of a sudden they see these beings that are surrounding them as well too. So some of these can look like human. Some of them again may kind of like humanoid in that particular way. Some may just be orbs of light as well too. But there's these beings, and they're not the quote-unquote malevolent kind. We're not talking about the ones that are intrusions. I'm basically talking about the ones that are much more of assistance in that way. And so they will appear in that child's room, and they'll start, that child may actually go through a type of sleep paralysis. All right, so sleep paralysis is the effect of your body in a type of REM state, right? So when you're basically in that state of rapid eye movement, what actually happens is that when we're actually in that state, our body is practically paralyzed, which means all of us go through some particular type of paralysis when we sleep at night, right? So we're basically just not aware of it because we're unconscious, right? We're in dream time. We're in the REM sleep mode. Basically what happens is that these children will basically have sleep paralysis. So in that sense, their body will be in a state of sleep, and their astral body will now start to phase out of their own physical body. The being that I channel, Adronis, has talked about this quite a bit. And what they'll do is they'll start implanting codes in the astral body. Implants, you could say, positive implants. And a lot of these particular forms of implants and codes can relate to DNA modification. It can relate to the idea of memory retrieval. It can relate to certain forms of inert abilities that therefore come online that can be instantaneous, or it can come together at a later time. Once they have completed that task, the child's astral body and physical body snap back together. They realize they're no longer in sleep paralysis, but they basically doze off and feel like it was some type of dream. They actually aren't able to put quite an understanding on it, if this was actually something that was real, or was it something that was a dream. But again, I've had a lot of people who I've done sessions with, interacted with, who have had those particular types of experiences, where they basically had sleep paralysis states, and basically having their physical body and astral body phase out of each other. And that's basically what's happening. Just again, as we're able to drift off and go to sleep, our astral body becomes transient, and then we're able to go into these different dream dimensions. But basically what's happening in that sense is somewhat of a in-between, because the child is becoming aware about what's actually happening in the room, but they're not too sure about what is actually transpiring relating to their own astral body. And so again, they'll have that kind of sleep paralysis state where again, at some point they'll snap back into their body and the paralysis will end. So certainly can be quite a frightening experience for a child, but they're not attempting to do any harm. They're basically implanting these codes because there's something that's going to serve these children as they grow older in life. And so a lot of these can be extraterrestrial memories. Some of these, in that sense, actually allow purification of the nadis, or the meridian centers within the body, so that these children, in that sense, actually have remarkable healing abilities. And basically what's happening is their staff members, their energetic tech support, as I call it, is basically clearing out the channels, the pathways, the nadis within the body, and actually having it purified. And you want to do this at kind of a very young age. And they'll notice that they'll have these kind of telepathic contacts with these beings as they continue on from 3 years old to 4, 5, 6, 7, and as they continue to get older, they're getting more of this telepathic contact. It's the idea where they're trying to be normalized into physical reality. They're trying to be normalized into these artificial systems, where there basically becomes numbness of those contacts. So when you notice that your own children are going through these extraordinary abilities, they have this great form of spiritual intelligence and physical intelligence, mental intelligence, support that, right? You want to continue to support the energies of what they're going through, because that's all part of how they can carry out many of the tasks that they're assigned here to be here at this particular time. So, moving on. Highly sensitive to technological bombardments. They prefer nature over cities and artificial systems. So again, there are a lot of the children, or again, as they grow up into adults, really just don't like being around the cities. It's very dense, it's very populated. They'll really only want to go into the cities if they're being guided to, if they're helping out people, if they're again kind of being like the torch that's shining brightly in the darkness. They will go into the cities and they will, again, assist. They'll work with compassion work, as I call it. So, but rather they would prefer to be out in nature, like being in a cottage or a cabin, out in the woods. I can vouch for that myself. That certainly is my case a lot of the time. I've certainly just been guided back to the city to help out in this way, but I would certainly rather be out in the woods, in a cabin, in a cottage, just where there's a lot of nature, because that's again where the purest healing energy is found in nature. They again withdraw from earthly needs or from starting families. They're spiritually oriented. So again, there may be some of these children that grow up, they have a partner and they have a child in that sense, but they basically aren't here for that. They're not really here to fall in love. They're not here to start families. They're here to basically fulfill tasks. Once those tasks are complete, they go home. Basically, when you have families in that sense, and you're basically trying to take care of families when you're in that particular type of level of a starseed indigo mentality, you're just adding more karma to yourself. But again, it's not a bad thing that these people may want to have families, may want to have children, but they're here. They understand that even after they have children, that they still have tasks to complete, that they're still fulfilling their life missions, as you could say. So they will do something that they can to incorporate their children into this. But there are quite a few of them in that sense that do not want children and do not want to have any particular types of families. They are spiritually orientated. They just want to come here, do what they came here to do, and leave. So they are, in that sense, very temporary visitors. Finally, karmic immunity. Now, not all starseeds and indigos have this, but there are certain children, I guess you could say, or adults, depending upon what we look at, that have karmic immunity. And what that means is that if they notice that they're getting into a conflicting situation, there's a natural imprint within themselves that helps them to immediately get out of it. So if they're basically holding certain forms of grudges, if there's any, intensities that come into their life, they learn through their own guidance, through their own selves, how to let that go and basically release it altogether, and basically staying as transparent to Earth as possible. And these are the ones that are basically karmic immune. So it's like a person in that sense that comes in and it feels like their entire aura is just filled with this slop. It's filled with tar. It's filled with just dirty stuff, right? They had a very, very busy day. And I actually had this encounter as well, too, with a client, with her daughter as well, too. I think she was only a teenager. And she came home one day and she was just feeling, awful. And her mom was quite clairvoyant, so she could see auras as well, too. And I said, oh my God, I should start healing. And she just says, no, leave it alone. My aura will take care of it, right? And then just goes upstairs. And the next morning, right as rain, right? No problem whatsoever. That is an example of karmic immunity, okay? So a lot of the young children have that. And again, we may see this in some of the adults as well too, but more so the children, right? Where they're basically feeling like they just had a really difficult day. There's a lot of dense energies around them. And again, if you're a clairvoyant and you want to try and offer healing to them, and said, nope, don't touch. Just don't touch at all. I'll be fine. Give myself till the morning and I'll be fine. And then they wake up, they're awake the next morning, they're smiling, they're giggling, they're laughing, everything's good. That is an example of karmic immunity. Okay, so when you leave it alone, right, and you trust in your own guidance to just do some breath work, you sit down, you relax yourself, you harmonize yourself, right, you're in your own state of peace. And then your own aura is now able to take all of that debris and completely flush it away, right? It's like an auric flush. Now, we have that capability to do that, but basically what happens with many of us is that we're so busy-minded. We're just, got to spread here, I got to do this, I got to take care of this, I got to do that, blah, 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 blah. And we're just in 1,000 different directions at the same time. And what we do is we feed these tendencies, we feed these urges. We're basically, in that sense, like a hamster that hits a button and a food pellet comes down, and we want that food pellet, right? So we get hit by these desires. And we want to, again, go into 1,000 different places at once. Well, you're not allowing the aura to replenish itself. The aura has the capability to do that. Your own energy body has the ability to do that. You have to get out of stimulation consciousness, right? And that's what a lot of these children have been able to do. They're able to put stimulation consciousness aside, and they're able to remain within their own space and are able to completely allow their aura to flush out all the debris and say, nope, it's out of here. It's being flushed out. It's not being given any power. So they may do something like read. They may sit down and meditate. They may listen to some music as they draw or maybe write, whatever it may be. They're doing something in that sense that's taking their focus out of the stimulation, right? Out of person. Well, this person called me this today, and this person called me that today, etc., etc. Who cares, right? Flushing it all out, letting it be. Don't answer the stimulation consciousness, and then it completely leaves their own aura. It flushes out. So that's karmic immunity. So it's something that we all can do if we discipline ourselves a little bit more, right? You don't just keep answering stimulation, right? You keep being stimulated and affected and hit by all the conflicting energies that you experience when you're in the artificial world. So you're letting all of those things flush out. Your body has the natural ability to do that. But again, many of us are just so addicted to stimulation, right? And a lot of these kids don't go there. They let it be, they become completely flushed out. They wake up the next morning and they feel purified. They feel great. So again, that's an example for all of us to follow. Okay, moving on. Many of the volunteers have ties to extraterrestrial civilizations on a common level, yet others can reside on other parallel Earths or universes, or even in the angelic realms of consciousness. So many of these souls are coming from, I guess you could say, all walks of life, all different forms of dimensions and universes. Currently, there is a fourth wave of volunteers not mentioned by Canon, by Dolores Cannon, that have begun to incarnate since around the time of the new millennium. These volunteers would be known as the hybrids, or the fourth wave. Now, again, Dolores Cannon has talked about the three waves of volunteers. And the first, again, would be kind of like the baby boomers. And the second would be, again, the generation that follows after the baby boomers. And then the third, again, would be kind of like what we would understand as well, you could say kind of like the millennials, but prior to the aspect of the millennials in that way. The millennials now more so, again, have kind of a mix between the third and fourth wave. There are children actually being born on the planet in that sense that have hybrid-like features, kind of like the photo that you see here on the right, where their eyes seem to be a little bit bigger, their skin seems to be a little bit more kind of smoother, creamier in that way. Some in that sense may actually have a little bit larger foreheads in that way, but they basically have a lot of the common signs of what we would know as the hybrid children, right? So basically, the hybridization programs between the humans and the beings that we know as the Greys. And they have created hybrid children as a result. And so there are a lot of mothers on the planet that have a lot of memories of actually being brought on board spacecraft and have actually been inseminated through the idea of pregnancy. And they basically experience 9 months of pregnancy within a matter of minutes. And there's basically a time field that's being placed around them. And again, they also go through a certain level of karmic immunity. So what the beings known as the Greys would do in these old agendas, so to speak, is that they would take the mother in question out of their room and put them on board a ship. They would often put them on a table, and they would create this particular type of time field around them. And this time field would actually accelerate the aspect of the birthing process as well, too. So you could basically look at a mother who, say, for example, is 2 months pregnant, and basically being able to see them go through a full lapse of up to 9 months pregnancy within a matter of minutes. And then the baby, of course, is extracted, and of course, the mother, on a physical level, doesn't even really see the child. Their mind is wiped, and then they are placed back into their own space again. And again, what happens is over time is that some of the mothers have, again, certain forms of orientations within themselves that are able to have memory recall, and they're able to remember a lot about their ability of giving birth on a spacecraft and actually seeing this child being taken out. The child is usually quite calm. There's no crying or anything of that nature. The child is basically karmaless. And so again, there is some work that's happening before time, before the actual event that happens, where they're being taken up on the ship, where there is a clearing of karmic ties relating to the idea between the mother and the child. So the child, in that sense, is just in an extraordinary state of being. They're karmaless. They have absolutely no form of karma relating to the parent or to the planet. And again, this is why it's done in this particular way. The reason why it's done on these spacecraft is because if it's done on Earth, then they basically are born into the karma of that planet. And again, succumbing to the natural settings, the mother, the father, etc. When they come on board the spaceship with a lot of the technologies that are available, they're able to warp, or in that sense, maneuver time to the point where they can actually clear out a lot of the karmic cords relating to the effect between the mother and, again, quote-unquote, the father's energy and the child themselves. And so they are extracted and, again, raised on board the spacecraft entirely, and they are extremely well-disciplined children. Like, just amazing, incredible. Very loving, very intelligent, very open, just like the purity of innocence. So what's happened now is that many of these hybrid children that have been born in that way will either do one of two things. One, they will actually leave their physical body, keep their physical body that they have that is hybridized in stasis, and they will come here and they will be born into their mother, and many of the beings that were responsible for creating that hybridization program with the child will work in secret together with the mother to hybridize her genetics. And so you would have, in that sense, quote unquote, extraterrestrial genetics contained in the baby without you even knowing anything about it, right? And then the baby comes into life, they become born, and then as they get older, you notice that they have certain hybrid features in them because part of their DNA is much more activated to the extraterrestrial side. Now, of course, all of us really do have that quote unquote extraterrestrial DNA, but these are, again, certain areas of DNA that have become active instead of dormant. And so now we have certain features of these children coming together and having these hybrid-like features and hybrid-like understandings all together. The second aspect in that sense about how a hybrid child comes together is that they may not even have an association together with the hybrid program, but they decide to come together into the soul of the child. And again, they too will have liaisons. They too will have DNA specialists that will come in and they will continue to work in hybridizing the child at specific points while they are in the mother's womb. So one in that sense can be voluntary from the actual hybrid child hybridization program experiments. Others in that sense simply desire the idea of a hybridization body. So again, that's basically the two ways about how it can come about. There may also be, in that sense, maybe a rare occasion where a hybrid child on board a spacecraft may just give up their own life so that they can incarnate again into their mother and again still have the same thing as it relates to hybridization coming through. And there's a reason why, again, these children are being hybridized and they're being allowed to come into the world. And again, that is much more of an advanced level of intelligence that's coming upon this planet, and where they may be so karmically immune to all the artificial systems that they are basically incorruptible. You can't even corrupt them. It's impossible. So when you have that type of child and they grow up into an adult and they want to become leaders and they want to help people out and they're incorruptible, that's a powerful generation to come. Again, for those of us that have seen loved ones that have come and gone, many of those loved ones are going to be coming back in those type of bodies into the fourth wave, right? So the third wave, again, represents like the new children, right? The fourth wave is more than just new children. It's hybrid children, right? So they are much more hybridized. They have much more extraterrestrial genetics contained within them. So we're not just talking about new children. We're talking about hybrid children. And this is a very, very different type of phase. Now, Dolores Cannon never said that there was a fourth wave. And with respect to her, and because I love her work and all that stuff, I'd have to disagree with her. Because basically a lot of what I've received as well, too, has actually given the impression that there is actually a fourth wave. And the fourth wave is much more to the hybrid program. It's much more different than just the new children coming upon the planet that may not have these hybridization aspects, even though they're very intelligent, they're very knowledgeable, they have great spiritual understanding, they have great ESP as well too. The hybrids are a different animal in that sense, I would say, or a very different version of the children. So again, they kind of come around the same time as the third phase, but I've likened it to the idea of two different types of terms. One, it's the second phase of the third wave, or it is referred to as the fourth wave. I just refer to it as the fourth wave because it's basically a very different category within itself. So again, that would represent the fourth wave, as I discuss here. The hybrids occupy the newly acquired 39th version of the human body template. So the 39th version represents the ideas that we have had 39 different versions of the human template, starting off with the earlier Neanderthals, and then coming together into our current version. And between that time to where we are right now, there are 39 versions of bodies. And the 39th version, again, would be the hybrid body. The 39th version of the human body template and their abilities are similar to previous generations, only far more aware of their life missions at very young ages. The hybrids will hold a higher commitment to fulfilling their missions as they hold a higher immunity to artificial manipulation and mind control. And that's the interesting thing about these children, Doesn't matter how technological you are, you can't mind control them, right? It's not possible. They actually have natural barriers put in place where they are completely immune to any particular type of technological mind control. So the 5G networks, for example, guys, is a perfect idea of that aspect of mind control, right? These, again, are all just bombardment of wave frequencies that actually work together in suggestion areas with the brain. Again, their electromagnetic frequencies and ELFs in that sense are very, very intense. They can cause illnesses as well. So a lot of the 5G network of the internet is one particular example of those idea of mind control programs. So this is why I would say to everybody, speak out against the 5G networks, completely abolish them. Don't use them, refuse to use them, disconnect them if you have to, right? Completely fill your house with nature, with vegetation, with orgone, with anything that really promotes life force. Bring as much life force into your house as possible, as much organic energy into your house as possible to completely abolish these 5G networks. But what we'll notice about the children in that sense is that they will be immune to a lot of those particular forms of artificial controls. Not all of them, right? But the ones that are very much hybridized will certainly have a greater immunity to that. In fact, many of their abilities are so strong that they can actually shut off those devices simply with a thought, right? That's really where these children are going. The whole idea is that there is the I guess I'm trying to find a good way to put this. The natural alignment for human progression. The new generation, I would say, that's coming upon the planet is very much aware about what many of these governments and shadow organizations and artificial systems are trying to do. And they are not coming onto this planet again unprepared. So they are basically having these abilities within their body where they can completely cancel out these frequencies simply by a thought. Now, some of these children may not even know how to do this, but they do it. This is why, again, that when you're maybe sitting by a computer and you're talking to somebody, all of a sudden the screen may start to flicker, right? The lights may start to flicker as well, too. And all of these energies in that sense are actually conflicting together with the energetic equipment. Well, that's again an example, right? Our energy is becoming so powerful now. We can turn off these particular forms of harsh frequencies with a thought. They're gone. We can also neutralize them as well, too. If they're a harsh radiation, if we're actually putting the intention of subtle, loving energy around the entire space, those energies are canceled out. This is why I say, put as much organic, natural life force into your home as possible. Put a lot of plants around your home. Adronis has also talked about using acorns, chestnuts, pine cones as well too, and creating them into grids and putting those around crystals. Great as well too, gemstones, etc. We want as much natural earth energies in our homes as possible. If we do have a lot of these electromagnetic frequencies, your neighbors have Wi-Fi, etc. as well too, then you want to try and put as much life force into your home as possible. And that will help to counterbalance a lot of these energies as well too. But if you can, just unplug, right? Unplug those 5G networks. You do not want them. They are very, very dangerous. They're very hazardous. And we do not want that. So that's kind of a general call. I made a post about that yesterday on my Facebook. So we want to be very, very made aware of that. Okay? So everybody, that is going to wrap up our episode today about the Starseeds and Indigos. I hope you guys all enjoyed this interaction today. And of course, I will be back next week with another episode of The Expansion Point. And I look forward to speaking to you all again next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Expansion Point, and I'll speak to you again in another perspective of the now. Take care.